Hi class, let's learn about percent change. So if we're talking about light bulbs and an LED light bulb uses 75% less energy, that's the one on the left, then its incandescent old light bulb, that's a percentage decrease. So any percent that's less than 100% would be a decrease. And then the new LED bulbs last 900% longer than the incandescent. So that number is greater than 100%, so that's an increase. So let's go and look at that decrease in more detail. So say, for instance, the incandescent light bulb used 100 watts. So that's on the left. So each of those boxes represents 25%. So 4 of them would be 100%. And here's the LED on the right. That's down to 25%. So it went from 100% down to 25%. So that is a change of 75%. How we would get that using math is that we take the starting amount, which is 100, and we want to see what it changed by with the new light bulb, so we would subtract 25. And then we're going to divide that by what it was originally. So what that ends up being is 75 over 100, which is 75%. So this is just an example of what that actually looks like. And here's that increase in more detail. So here's the old light bulb. Say it lasts only 1 year, whereas the new bulbs last for 10 years. So how that appears is that we have light bulbs that now last for 10 years. And we want to see what that change was from the old light bulbs that lasted for a year. And what we would divide that by is the original length, which was 1 year. So we have 9 over 1, and 9 written as a percent is 900%. So now we're going to look in more detail at how to do that. Percent change in general is just the amount of change, so subtract, and you always have to divide by the original amount. That's maybe the tricky part. If we're looking at this cartoon about selling sunscreen, and the sunscreen used to be $10 and now they're selling it for $20. You can see in the formula that our new price minus our old price, 20 minus 10, which is 10, divided by the original price of 10, is 10 over 10, or 1, which is 100% increase. Okay, so let's look in our foldable. We glue it into our notebook, and let's look first at the increase. So basically it's the same formula, it's just the order that you subtract in, so you get a positive number. So if we're getting an increase, we're going to take the new amount minus the original amount, and always divide by the original. So look on your foldable, and the example is that a team changed from 7 players to 10 players. So our new amount is now 10. And our original amount was 7. And what we have to divide that by is the original amount. So you end up having 3/7, which now you have to change it into percent form, because that's what percent increase is. So if we divide 3 divided by 7, use your calculator, you get 0.429. I'm rounding to the thousands place, and that's equal to 42.9%. So that team has increased by 42.9%. Okay, if you look on the right side, we're going to look at a percent of decrease. So the only difference in the formula is now you're going to take your original amount, because that's the higher amount, just to get a positive difference. So if we're seeing the change from 125 invitations down to 75 invitations, we're going to do that subtraction, 125 minus 75, and we're going to divide by the original amount, 125, and you're going to get a decimal, and from that decimal, we're going to turn it into a percent. So that is what the change was in the invitations. So they went down 40%. Okay, let's look at a couple more. This one is not in your foldable, so it's the same exact formula when you're finding percent error. So what that means is that, say you work, in a factory and you're building something, what you make has to be really close to what the size you wanted it to be. So you want to estimate, well, how far off am I from what I really wanted it to be? So in this case, let's look at this. This is example 3 in our book. If you estimated the length of your classroom to be 16 feet, but the actual length was really 21 feet, you would do the exact same thing we did for increase or decrease. You would take the higher number, which is 21, and subtract the lower number. And in this case, though, you would divide by what the actual length is. That's the only thing you really have to pay attention to at that formula. When you get a decimal and change it to a percent, you end up with 23.8%. And that means that that's how far off your estimate was from the actual. Okay. The last thing I'm going to do with you before you do your own work is I'm going to do the first 2 problems on the inside of your foldable with you. So number 1, what it says is find the new amount. So if there originally were 12 dogs and it's decreasing by 25%, it's like there was a discount at the store and you're getting something for a lower price. So what you would do, there's 2 ways you can do this. One is the 2-step method, and what that is we can just have our 12 dogs, and what we're really taking away is 25% of 12. So 0.25 times 12, which really is 3. So you end up with 12 minus 3. And your answer would be that now there are 9 dogs. I'm going to show you a shortcut way to do that, is that if you're decreasing the amount by 25%, that means, so if there were 100% to begin with, and we're decreasing it by 25%, that means now we have 75% of the dogs. So what you could do in one step is find 0.75 of the dogs. You will find out you'll also get 9 dogs as your answer. So I just showed you 2 ways to get that decrease. Now we're going to look at number 2, where we're finding an increase. So the 2-step way would be to say, well, we had originally 140 fluid ounces, and we're increasing that by 45%. So let's add on 0.45 of 140. So once you add those 2 parts together, you're going to end up with 203 fluid ounces. Okay. So now I'm going to show you again the shortcut kind of way, is that if you think of it now, we're increasing 100%. So we're going to add on to 100% this 45%. So we're going to find 145% of 140. So we would write that as a decimal, 1.45, and we'd multiply that by 140 and get the same answer. Okay, so I just showed you a couple examples, just like 3 and 4, so you want to try those. And then the remainder, 5 through 12, really go back to your formulas that you have on the front of your foldable and practice using them. Okay, good luck.